Hello, welcome. Sorry, we're running a little bit late. So just inviting you just to start to drop into the space with me for a few moments here before we begin. So just closing down the eyes if that feels good, and we're just going to take some deep breaths. And really calling yourself into this space. And what I mean by that is calling your energy here, your presence, really allowing yourself to be fully present in this container of opening to deeper intimacy. It's really through that full presence and really being fully here in the moment that you're going to be more open to receive, more receptive. So what's shared is going to land on a much deeper level. So often we can jump into things like this and kind of be half here, half somewhere else. So I invite you into full presence here. Really giving yourself that permission to receive whatever it is that you're meant to receive here. If you're here, whether you're live, whether you're watching the replay, there is a reason. There's no mistake here. There's no coincidence. You're here for a reason. And there is something for you to receive. And what I notice a lot within my own journey, within my work, within the theme of intimacy is so many of us can really struggle with receiving. Maybe we don't feel worthy. Maybe we don't feel like we've earned it. Maybe we feel like we have to earn it, like we've got to work for it in order to deserve it. And there can be a lot of fear because being in that receptive state is quite vulnerable. And it can often remind us of times in the past where we were open to receive, when our heart was open and we got trampled on, we got hurt, we got wounded, we got traumatized. And so we learned over time to close down the heart, which closes down our receiving, our ability to really receive. And so this is part of the initiation of this journey, is really opening to receive, expanding our capacity to receive, expanding our capacity to feel and hold more sensation in the body. Because when we're in deeper intimacy, that's what's going to happen. We're going to bring more sensation to the body. There's going to be more aliveness, more feeling, more receiving. And that can actually feel quite intense if we've been closed and numb for some time. So that's where I want to start. I want to just invite you into a few more deep breaths here. And even just starting to notice what it feels like to really receive your breath. Because so many of us even cut ourselves off from that. We become shallow breathers. We hold everything down. We suppress. We trap our life force energy from really flowing abundantly and easily. So really practicing here, even just with the breath, can I really receive the fullness of my breath, my life force energy? And we're going to be going into embodiment practices in this masterclass as well. There's going to be teaching element, there's going to be energetic transmission, and there's going to be embodiment work, because that's really where the magic happens. And this is really foundational. Can I allow myself to receive my breath fully? What do I mean by that? It means, can I draw my breath deep into my belly, deep into my chest? Can I really give myself that permission to fully receive that? And letting it go and letting that energy flow through you. So it's not like we're not attaching, we're not grasping, we're not holding on to the breath. We allow the breath to flow. So often we can find ourselves either pushing love away, pushing intimacy away, avoiding, or grasping, chasing, holding onto it so tight that actually prevents us from experiencing that deeper intimacy as well. So again, noticing with the breath, am I able to receive a full breath, or does it feel like it gets stuck? Am I more of a shallow breather? And it's not wronging or shaming this, it's just noticing. Do I hold my breath? Can I let it go? So let's take a few more breaths here. And just noticing what you feel in the body. And so we'll be exploring more with this over the coming days. I want to officially welcome you to the Opening to Deeper Intimacy Masterclass. And I want to invite you to really feel into what has called you here. What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you desire to receive from this place? And if you're open to, feel free to feel free to share with me in the chat. And for those watching the replay, feel free to pop on one of our social media posts and share your intention. This is really, really powerful. I speak about it all the time. When we really set that intention, how much that really dictates the journey and the experience that we have and what we really receive. So often we can kind of come into these spaces and not really know what we're here for or what we're really looking for or where we're going. And it's not that we can't receive from that place, but we definitely go so much deeper with the journey when there's that intention. We're really playing our part as co-creator. So feel free to pop in the chat or in one of the social media posts, let me know what brought you here and what you'd like to receive. This also helps me ensure that you're going to get the most out of this because I know what you're wanting to get out of it and I can really speak into that. I'm going to start to move into, it's a bit of a teaching element, but really more of an energetic transmission. And so when I'm sharing and speaking along, like over the coming days, I really want to invite you to notice what comes up for you, what resonates, what doesn't, what bubbles up, the sensations that you experience. Really allow this to be an embodied experience rather than kind of waiting for the embodiment journey. The whole masterclass is an embodiment experience. And I really want to be able to, my intention here is really to speak from my heart to yours, my soul to yours, and really share my journey to deeper intimacy and share what I've learned on that journey to support you to start cultivating that deeper intimacy, first and foremost with yourself. And then from that place, that's where it ripples out and starts to shift the external relationships. So for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Monique Carmela, and I'm going to be guiding you through this process and this journey. And how this is going to work is I'm going to be uploading the teaching, the speaking element of this masterclass to the podcast, The Good Girl Unleashed. So if you subscribe to the podcast, you'll get notified when the replays are up. But the embodiment journey, it's only going to be sent out to those who registered for the masterclass. And there's going to be the video. It's going to be sent out in a video form so that you can do that embodiment journey when suits you. And they're only going to be available for a limited time. So probably about a week after the masterclass, I'm going to keep those embodiment journeys up and then they're going to be removed. So if you are watching the replays, just make sure that you jump in and really get those embodiment journeys because that's, like I said, that's where the magic is. That's where we do the really deep, deep work. Of course, there is magic and transformation in the transmission as well. And you're going to notice a lot of shifts and a lot of insights coming through. And in that, I invite you to really take that time to reflect and integrate after these sessions. So I'm going to be sending out some suggestions via email of what you can do to support your integration and take this work further. I'll also be talking about some different ways that we can work more deeply together if you want to go further into this work. So what I have realized on my own journey, so to kind of, I released a podcast yesterday, and that was going a little bit more into my backstory and my journey with cultivating deeper intimacy. So if you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend. But just a little bit of a brief kind of where I was and where I am and why I'm doing this work today and why I'm guiding others is really that I struggled so deeply in this area, not only with intimacy with others, but also intimacy with myself. And I realized that's actually the core of it, because our internal world is actually creating the external. What we see externally is a reflection of what's happening inside of ourselves. And so when I came to know this, that was what really initiated me into this observation and this curiosity and like a deep compassion for what I'm experiencing and what I'm seeing, not only within myself, but within others. And when we start to have a lot more compassion for ourselves, we start to have a lot more compassion and understanding for others too. So again, it's that mirror, it's that reflection. So if you're noticing that there is a lack of intimacy in your relationship, in your partnership, in your work, like in your relationships with others, like wherever it might be, maybe that lack of connection, or what I noticed for me as well was a challenge around actually experiencing love, feeling it, receiving it, expressing it. There was a real strong disconnect of actually experiencing deep love, deep connection, and deep intimacy. And it's no surprise that that's what I'm supporting my clients and students with today, because that's where so much of my work took place, is being on that journey of healing the wounds, the traumas, noticing the beliefs and the stories I was buying into, and also the what we're going to go into today as well is around triggers and how the triggers can actually support you to become aware of what's really going on. Because when we start to become aware of like, oh, my external world is a reflection of my internal world, it's like, well, what do I do about that? How do I know what the beliefs are? How do I know what the traumas and the wounds are? Because a lot of us don't necessarily have all the memories from childhood of like, this is what happened and this is what it led to. And that was me as well. I don't have that much memory from childhood. And you don't even need to. That's the amazing thing with this work, is it's really deeply connecting to your body's wisdom, because your body remembers everything. Your mind may forget, but your body will remember. And so it's like, how can we deepen that connection and that intimacy with ourselves and our body that actually opens up the gateway of awareness, of understanding, of transformation, of healing, which is what will allow you to experience that deeper intimacy in your relationships. So for me, for the longest time, I really struggled with relationships in every way. I could barely even hold a conversation. So it's like if I couldn't really talk to someone, it wasn't really going to go very far. And that's what I found was I would start to date someone and I would lose my voice. And I felt so terrified of speaking and communicating and expressing myself. I also had a lot of stuff around not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, and feeling like my needs didn't matter. And there was a lot of conditioning around being the good girl and being this and being that, and having to contort myself in order to be loved, accepted, and belong. But I was so afraid of getting it wrong, so afraid to say the wrong thing, so afraid to do the wrong thing because it was going to lead to X, Y, and Z. And so as much as I wanted this deep relationship, this intimacy, conscious relationship, it just felt so out of reach for me because I couldn't even say hello, let alone actually express myself on a very deep level, especially like in the bedroom. It was just like this freeze response that I would experience. And I was experiencing a lot of depression, anxiety, and isolation, feeling incredibly alone, feeling like there must be something seriously wrong with me. I don't understand why I'm having these challenges. Like, it doesn't seem to be like anyone else is having this. What is wrong with me? And I would internalize all of these experiences I was having. And this was preventing me from having the relationship I really desired. And I just kept experiencing the same pattern happening again and again, connecting with someone, feeling that rush, feeling like this could be the one, but then not being able to speak, not being able to connect, not being able to open up and receive. And it would just fizzle out. And then it was when I met my current partner of, we've been together about 5.5 years now. And even same with him in the very beginning. As soon as we started dating, lost my voice and noticed how I would even use sex as a way to avoid intimacy, real deep intimacy. And so that just led me on this massive journey, becoming a mother again, like really all of my life experiences, business, all of the things has really shown me where I've been disconnected from myself, where I have been avoiding or fearing intimacy. And all the triggers, all of the experiences that I've had has really supported me to come into that deeper space of cultivating a deep intimacy. And what I really love about the word intimacy is when you really break it down, it's into me I see. So often we're thinking of intimacy as connecting with someone outside of ourselves, but actually it's into me I see. It's really coming home to yourself and cultivating that self-intimacy that allows you to experience it with another. It's allowing yourself to be fully seen, naked, and I don't mean just physically naked, but like raw, like who you truly are. How often do we actually allow our true selves to be seen? For a long time, I noticed myself not wanting to be seen. Even when I would put myself out there online, it's like I would throw it out there and then just shut down and not look at it and not want to even acknowledge that it happened. There was still such a fear of being seen, of being heard. What are people going to think? What are they going to say? And even in that, all of that is part of the process. I also mentioned on the episode yesterday, which is really the prequel to this masterclass, around there is no overnight success. It's not about doing this masterclass or this one thing or this healing this one trauma or releasing this one belief. So often we're kind of looking for that magic pill or that one thing that's going to change everything, but it's not necessarily the case. It's every step that we take on this journey. And so as I reflect back, as we've been leading up to this masterclass, I've noticed myself reflecting on my own journey to deep intimacy and seeing how it was so many steps, one at a time, one foot in front of the other, just keep on going, and noticing where I was called to be. So the masterclasses that I joined, the experiences that I joined, the teachers that I worked with, the mentors, the healing work that I've done, it's all of those that has led me here to you today, sharing what I've learned on my journey, with the intention that you'll receive whatever it is that you're ready to receive on your journey to deeper intimacy. So what I really learned with reflecting on all of this and going through my own journey, it really came down to discovering and embodying my authentic self, peeling back those layers and really dropping into who I truly am, and noticing where I was afraid to be fully myself, the weird part of myself, the sexy part of myself, the gentle part of myself, the part of me that is actually shy, that is actually introverted, that does want to be in her cave sometimes, and really embracing all the different aspects, realizing I don't have to be one way all the time or one way across all relationships, that my authenticity is actually embodying all of the parts of me, the shadow selves, the parts that we often shame and suppress and push away and think are wrong, and seeing how all of them are beautiful, all of them are sacred. And the more that I integrated these different parts of me, I was able to show up as my full self in my relationship, in my business, in motherhood, in all areas of my life. And this is an ongoing journey. I want to mention that as well. It's not that I'm finished and that's why I'm here. It's that I've gotten to a level where I have experienced a very deep level of intimacy and connection and love and thriving and abundance, that I'm now here and ready to share what I've learned. But I know that this is going to be an ever evolving journey, something that I'm going to continue to delve into, deepen into. There's even more available to you than we can even comprehend, which is really incredible. So often we're like, I just want to get to the destination. I just want to kind of get to the thing that I'm desiring. But we don't realize that there's a limitation in that. There's so much more available beyond that that we can't even comprehend. And when you get to that destination that you're desiring, there's going to be a new desire. There's going to be a new level, and we get to continue expanding and evolving and leaning into more. And what happens, when I was mentioning earlier, like the amount of sensation in the body when we start to cultivate a deep intimacy, it can be very intense if we've been disconnected, dissociated, numb for quite some time, or if we've kind of been pushing away this intimacy. So there's an essentialness of like taking one step at a time, going one layer at a time, working within your nervous system's capacity. And so that's why it's like we have this desire that if that desire is there for you, if that's a real authentic desire, because there's a difference between authentic desire and ego desire, thinking that we need to have something in order to be good enough or worthy, or what's it going to mean about us. When it's an authentic desire, it's really meant for you, and you're going to be guided on the journey to that. That's why you're guided here. That's why something called you to be here today. And you'll get to that initial destination, that initial desire that's present for you right now, and then you'll realize that there's so much more. And when you're at that point, it's like your nervous system has expanded in a way that it now can hold more. But your desire is going to be like what's within your, like what's available to you right now. And then you're going to realize like, holy shit, there's even more available. Holy shit, this is even better than what I was expecting or anticipating. But it's also going to have moments where it feels challenging, where it feels sticky, where it feels uncomfortable. And that's the work. So what I've noticed on my own personal journey as well is that I have this desire, I have this thing that I'm working toward. And on that journey, everything that is maybe in the way of me having that bubbles up. So when we're on this journey, so say that this masterclass, and you set that intention for yourself, there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be stickiness and resistance, because really there is a false sense of safety in being in the known. It's like if I just stay where I am, I know what to expect, I know how to anticipate, I know how to navigate that, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's toxic, even if it's actually unhealthy for us, there is this feeling of I'm safe in the known. So when we're starting to step out of the known into uncertainty, into the unknown, into like, well, I've never really been in this experience before. Can I handle it? What's going to happen? Am I actually safe to be fully open? Especially when we're in relationship and there's other people involved, it's like, am I really safe to open my heart to them? Am I really safe to receive? Am I really safe to ask for what I want? What if they say no? What if they do this? What if they don't love me anymore? What if they leave? Like there's all these thoughts and fears, which we'll get more into tomorrow. But that's really like the journey. So often what can happen though is as these things are bubbling up, the resistances, the blocks, the fears, the emotions, we can start to tell ourselves the story that, oh, it's not working. Oh, it didn't work for me. Oh, like it's just not going to happen for me. I'm not cut out for this. We can start to notice these stories. This is also part of the process, is noticing, what am I telling myself? What are the thoughts? What are the stories? What am I making this mean about me? If my partner doesn't do this, or if I'm doing the work but they're not, starting to notice what is coming up for you in this process, because this is your work. It's not about them. It's about noticing what is here for you, what's being revealed to you, because these are the layers that we're starting to shed and we're starting to dissolve, we're starting to integrate, so that you can experience deeper intimacy regardless of what anyone else is doing around you. It always starts with you. I am a massive advocate for doing your inner work. That is actually what is going to transform your relationship. So often it's like they need to do this, or they're not doing that, or I'm trying to shift something so that they change. If I heal this, then maybe they'll change, or they'll do the healing work or whatever. And there's like this sometimes obvious and sometimes more subtle of still expecting or waiting for someone else to change for you to feel differently. And it's never going to work like that. We need to cultivate our own inner landscape and inner experience. That's why I talk about self-intimacy. Until you have that self-intimacy, it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to experience that intimacy with another. You might have moments or glimpses, but what if that it could actually be our baseline, is experiencing this deep intimacy regardless of what's happening around us, regardless of what's happening in our relationship. Because the other piece is sometimes we want to join a masterclass like this and kind of get to the end and just have the thing like that. But especially when it comes to relationships and there's others involved, it is going to be a process that creates the intimacy between the two of you. And often it can take quite some time to cultivate that within yourself. That's why we do the embodiment practices. That's why we work with someone, with a mentor, and do ongoing work with this, because it does take time to move through those layers so that you can actually experience intimacy within yourself, and then you notice how it ripples out into other areas of your life. And you're like, wow, I shifted this within myself, and now I'm noticing a very, very significant shift in my relationship. My partner is responding differently, they're reacting differently, they're relating to me differently. Because as you start to feel safer within yourself, they start to feel safer within themselves and within your presence. So the work that you do, it does impact those around you, but we don't want to be doing it so that they change. There's a different energy with that. Like, I'm doing this and then I'm waiting and expecting them to do the thing as well and to change, and then we're kind of getting pissed off or irritated or resentful because they're not changing. So it's, where is my intention at? Where is my energy at? And how can I really shift that of like, I'm focusing on me and my energy and my self-intimacy, my healing journey, and I'm allowing that to support those around me. The other pieces, they have to desire to shift in order to shift as well. Like, yes, we can have that impact on them just by being our authentic self. That's going to impact them in some way. But unless they want to really shift and have that deeper intimacy as well, it may be really challenging to cultivate and transform that. So being mindful, we can't force anyone to change, and why would we really want to force someone? If we even think of times that maybe someone has tried to push us or force us or demand of us, and how shitty that feels, that's often what we're doing to others, and sometimes not even aware of it. So when we can bring that focus back to ourselves, that's really where a lot of these shifts will happen. And that's where I noticed a lot shifting in my own relationship with Liam, was when I started to do my own work for me, rather than doing the work hoping that he would change, hoping that he would do it too. That's when I noticed so much shifting within him and within our relationship. And there wasn't really necessarily anything that he needed to do or change for that to happen. Things just naturally started to shift. But sometimes when I share that part of my story, people think, oh, well, I'll just do this so that I get that from them. So again, really coming into radical honesty and radical responsibility here is like, where is my intention? Where is my energy at? Because that's when it's coming into more of that kind of ego space. I'll do this so that they do that. I'll give this so that they give me this. I'll do X, Y, and Z, and now I deserve them to do this thing, and when they don't, I'm pissed off. So really taking some time after today, definitely I'm going to send you some prompts to really feel into this a bit more, where some of this is resonating for you, and maybe how you're showing up in your relationships. There's so much that we can start to see just by realizing that our external is a reflection of our internal. We can start to see, like, what are the stories I'm telling myself? What are the beliefs that I've been holding on to? What are the needs that have not been met? What I have noticed as well, which has been a massive block from me on my journey with intimacy, with specifically with my partner, but definitely it's impacted all areas, is years and years and years, like really a lifetime of unmet needs, and the pain of that. And also the pain of feeling like my needs were not valid, my needs did not matter. It was selfish to have needs, that it wasn't okay, that I was meant to be self-sacrificing, that I was meant to be giving all the time and pleasing. And there's so much conditioning for both men and women in that, feeling like we've got to give and give and give, and we've got to prove ourselves, and we've got to earn love, we've got to earn money, we've got to earn whatever it might be. Like we've got to do so much, and we're kind of on this hamster wheel of like, I've got to do in order to be deserving of the things that I desire, the love, the intimacy, having my needs met. And what I realized was like the pain of those unmet needs was really a massive block. It was almost like this kind of thick membrane that blocked me, like this big wall that stopped me from experiencing that deep intimacy. It's what creates a lot of resentment in relationships as well. And when we're resenting, it's very hard to connect on that deep level and have those really magical experiences. By doing this work around healing that pain, healing those wounds, releasing that resentment. And I did this through embodiment work. I did this through breath work. I did this through working with mentors and going into very intensive trainings to really discover the tools and move through those layers. And that's what I support my clients and students with today, is really going through those layers. But it was by doing that work, and that's why I want to weave in the embodiment practices into this. So if you're watching the replay and you're not registered for the masterclass, register and you'll get access to those. Yeah, so it was going through those layers where I started to be able to feel more sensation in my body, where I started to be able to feel more aliveness, more pleasure, more joy, and I could feel my heart opening. I've had some really profound experiences, and again, it's not just the one embodiment journey that I did, it's everything that led me up to being able to go that deep. That's why we work on in like a longer term, so we can actually take our time, the time that's needed for the nervous system to relax and soften and open, for the heart to relax and soften and open, for the pelvis. So with when it comes to intimacy, sometimes we're thinking as well around sexual intimacy and sexual connection and being able to really lean into that level of intimacy. And it's, again, doing this deep work, because when we're closed off in the heart, we're often going to be closed off in the sex center. When we're closed off in our throat and we're feeling not safe to express ourselves, we're going to be closed off in the sex center. We're going to be closed off in the heart. And we'll notice this hardness in the body. We'll notice this like what I notice, I see it a lot, is like clenched jaws, furrowed brows, like really closed off. We're not open to receive. We're not open to experience the pleasure and the goodness of life. We're not open to really lean into knowing our partner or knowing ourselves on that deep level where it's the intimacy, into me I see. When we can really allow ourselves to be fully seen, when we can really allow ourselves to really see the being in front of us for what they truly are, rather than our projections and ideas of them and judgments of them. When we're stuck in that place of judgment, and what we also realize with judgment, it's always self-judgment. When you're judging someone else, notice, where do I judge myself for that? Where do I wrong myself for that? Where do I actually have those same, like I show up in those same ways, or times that I have shown up in those ways and I've shamed myself for it. And now I'm shaming the other for it, because it's not okay. It's conditioned within us to believe that that is wrong. And if I were to act like that, I would not be loved, accepted, or belong. So no one else should act like that. So again, getting really curious. This day one is really about inviting you into the observer and starting to become aware of some of these things that might be playing out for you. And through that awareness is where we actually enter that gateway into the transformation. That's where the healing begins, is through that awareness. Until we can see what's really going on, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So you may already start to notice that there's some things resonating for you. And let me know at any point in the chat box, on social media, what's actually resonating for you. And again, that way I can actually deepen into the pieces that are really alive for you and give you those supportive insights and tools that are going to really help you to take what we're exploring here much, much deeper. I'm just going to pop my laptop on charge before I disappear. All right, so
I can just share what I'm looking for, but
yeah.
which is really to deepen the intimacy with myself, or deepen the connection with myself.
Mm.
Um, and looking for the blind spots that I can't see or won't see. Um, yeah, so I'm here looking for insights and tips and um, little aha moments that may click in and make more sense to me. Yeah, I'm well on the way. I'm well on this journey, but there's so much more work to do to connect to myself, which is really holding me back. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I so hear you and feel you in that, and thank you for sharing. I know how vulnerable it is to even just open up and share where you're at and what you're looking for. And feeling into as well, like what would that give you, or what would that maybe feel like? What are you hoping that when I connect to myself, what's gonna change in my life? Because often we're like, maybe we want to feel a certain way, or we're hoping something will change in our life. Um, what's that for you?
more connection to everything. I think if I connect to myself more, then I'm more connected to everything around me, and just more connected to my own intuition, and sense of, I suppose, a sense of confidence.
Mm.
Um, I have to ponder that some more.
Yeah, yeah. Take some time to feel into it. Same for everyone listening to the replay. When we're feeling into that intention, it's like, how do I hope this will make me feel? And so as you share, Cam, what I'm experiencing in my body is like this aliveness. Like we're here to be here for the full human experience. We're here to experience all of it. And it doesn't mean just the good stuff. We're actually here to experience what we might consider bad or negative. And I actually guided a journey a couple days ago inside the Embodied Woman experience that I'm running. And it was really connecting to the emotions that we often avoid because we feel like it's wrong or it's uncomfortable. Like it's freaking uncomfortable to go fully into it. But actually, it's by going fully into it that we come out the other side and we experience the aliveness. We can actually experience the pleasure of these emotions and the parts of us that actually came here for that. And so we went into things like shame and fear and failure and jealousy and disgust and things like that. Even like there's a big one around anger, like just these different emotions that we think are wrong. So we want to kind of avoid them and we want to just kind of jump to the quote unquote good feels, the high vibes, but actually we're missing out on so much of the fullness of our experience. And there's actually so much pleasure to experience when we fully go into the anger, when we fully go into the poor me, which is a big one that I've had, like that victim, poor me, it's not happening for me. And there's actually part of me that experiences pleasure in that. And that was a big thing for me to realize. And that's where it comes into the embodying of the authentic self. It's not I'm just going to be the good parts. I'm just going to feel good all the time. And that's what it means to be authentic. For me, what it means to be authentic is embracing and embodying all of yourself, not getting rid of the parts that are wrong or quote unquote wrong or shameful. Because that's what I notice so many of us are doing on this journey to embodying the authentic self, to connecting with ourselves, is thinking that I'm going to heal this part as a way of getting rid of it. I'm going to integrate this part so that it's gone, rather than I'm actually integrating, which what integrate actually means is to become whole. It's embracing, it's allowing yourself to feel it fully and embody it fully. And that's what a lot of my work actually does. It invites you into the embodiment of these aspects of self that we don't allow ourselves to embody. And some of those aspects feel really sticky and uncomfortable, in the sense like it might be something that we don't allow ourselves to feel, like shame, anger, guilt, all these different things. And then it can also be the parts of ourselves that we really desire to experience. But maybe we feel like, oh, it's not okay for me to be in my full expression. It's not okay for me to be weird and quirky and laugh out loud. It's not okay for me to be this, what we perceive as too much. It's not okay for me to be in my full aliveness and just out in the world like, this is me. I've got to wear these masks and I've got to like dull it down, or maybe I'm not feeling like I'm enough and I've got to turn it up. So again, sitting with that and noticing what elements of this conversation that you're already resonating with, and how can we start to invite ourselves to lean into our authentic self a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. It's not about going from 0 to 100. It's not about necessarily diving into the deep end. I spoke about on the podcast yesterday about, it's like, it's not about kind of this magic pill, this overnight success going from 0 to 100. It's really working within your nervous system capacity. It's really going to that edge and leaning in a little bit more, and knowing that this is going to be a lifelong journey. It's not going to be like, okay, I'm now my authentic self, I'm done, tick that off the box. I've now healed X, Y, and Z, tick, 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 I'm done now. It's not about that. But so many of us have been conditioned to feel like there's an end point, and there really isn't. And we actually aren't here to get to an end point. Even when this particular life comes to completion, it's actually just a transition. We're just going off onto another journey. So it's just this ever evolving, ever changing experience. And really, the key to cultivating that deeper intimacy with yourself, that deep connection with yourself, for me, that's what I was saying, what I was feeling as you were sharing was like this aliveness, this essence coming back to the body. I can be fully myself. And that's in whatever capacity that you're currently at, because there's always going to be more. And that for me is exciting. When we start to see it as like, wow, like the abundance of that, there is always more intimacy, more love, more connection, more of me-ness to come through. I can just keep turning up the volume, turning up the volume, turning up the volume. And in that, we actually get to show others what's possible. And that's really why I'm here, is to show others what is possible when we keep showing up. We keep showing up, and it gets sticky and it gets uncomfortable. And realizing that it's not just uncomfortable to feel the quote unquote negative stuff, the shame, the shadow self, the inner child, the deep emotions, the grief. It's actually, for me, was maybe even more uncomfortable and more inaccessible initially, to feel the quote unquote good stuff, the pleasure, the joy, the aliveness actually was more intense for me than it was for me to go into depression or anger or anxiety or sadness. Like those things are actually more accessible because they were more familiar. And often that's actually the case for a lot of people. And so we start there, we start with what's accessible, and then we start to broaden, we start to go to the edge of like, let me weave in some pleasure here, let me weave in the joy, let me start to lean into that a little bit more. Because so often we'll go into the healing journey and we focus on the traumas and the limiting beliefs and the negative emotions, and we actually forget that we need to recalibrate our system to feel more joy, to feel more pleasure, to feel more connection and intimacy. Because for so long, that didn't feel safe for us to feel. So now we've got to recalibrate and anchor in safety into the nervous system so that we can feel more pleasure, that we can feel more like ourselves, that it's safe to be myself in the world and in our relationships. So we'll take a moment for for all of this to start landing. And like I said, I'm going to be in touch via email. I'm going to be sending you some suggestions and prompts and things to really sit with, because that's what's going to really allow you to go so much deeper with this. We're going to start to move into the embodiment practice. I'm just going to see if there was anything else that I wanted to speak to. Um, hmm. So this is really foundational. This day one is foundations. It's really, this is the piece. This is the work. This is what we're here to do. And we will pendulate. We will pendulate between connection and disconnection, pleasure and pain. We will pendulate between the two. It's, again, we're not going to get to a place where we're just happy all of the time, where we're in pleasure all of the time. It's not sustainable to just be in the high vibe all the time, but there is so much pressure and push to be in the good feels all the time. And we avoid the bad feels, thinking that, well, if I'm feeling bad or I'm feeling like the shame or sad or anger or whatever, that it's going to actually block us or stop us from manifesting or experiencing more of the things that we want. We're kind of like, just stay high vibe, just do the affirmations, just do the thing, and just keep feeling good. And it actually is not conducive of feeling this deeper intimacy. For me, intimacy is really being intimate with our human experience, with our human, because on a deeper level, we're this incredibly expansive soul, and we are so much more than just our human form. But the human experience is really about being intimate with that human experience. It's about feeling all of it. It's about being here for all of it, riding those waves, going to the depths of the lows, going to those highs, and not wronging or shaming any of it. So I just really want to invite you into that intimacy with whatever is alive within you right now. So, and also whatever is alive as you ride through this journey of opening to deeper intimacy, what comes up for you? What are the stories? How intimate can you get with the stories that you're telling yourself? Whilst also knowing that you are not the story, you are not the emotion, you are the experiencer. Reminding yourself of that when you're in the thick of it. I am the experiencer and I'm here to have this experience. How deeply can I lean into that? And it's when you lean into it fully that boom, it shifts. That's the key here, is that so many of us are like resisting feeling the uncomfortable, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's uncomfortable. It's a lot of sensation. And we resist. And that's actually what creates this like lingering pain and suffering. Whereas if we were to fully lean in, and I speak about this when I run breathwork workshops, what happens when we come into a connected breath is that we meet the resistance, and the resistance is uncomfortable to feel. And as most people will stop breathing at that point. Whereas the beautiful thing about being in workshop though is that you're guided. You're like, keep breathing, and we really let you know that feeling this resistance is actually part of the process, and that helps you to move through it. But there will be people that aren't maybe willing or able to really meet that resistance and know that that is part of the process. But even in that, resisting the resistance is also sometimes, and it definitely was for me, part of the process. And the more that I met the resistance, the more that I leaned in a little bit more and a little bit more, I was able to move through that and into that deeper experience, into feeling my emotions. That's what I love about breathwork, is it really is a bit of a fast track to move through that resistance and feel the thing that we're often avoiding. And then in that, it's often about 90 seconds. If you allowed yourself to fully feel the thing that you're avoiding, it would be about 90 seconds. And then we naturally come back to our homeostasis, inner calm, flow, joy, satisfaction, that peace. And what I've realized, it's for so long I was chasing these highs. I was chasing the high, the peak experience. And it's just not sustainable to be in that all of the time. And it was really allowing myself to ride that wave, to be in those lows, to be in those highs, but then also to be in the peacefulness, in the in between, in the calmness, and not needing to get anywhere. So yeah, day one is all about foundations. There's so much here already for you to sit with, and I really want to invite you to sit with this, especially like we're in the final month of 2024, and this is a really incredible time actually to be going into this. There's no mistake that I was divinely guided to lead this masterclass at this time. It's such a potent time to come into self-reflection as we complete another year and really start to feel into what is the energy that we want to enter 2025 with, because it's going to be another massive year. The other piece to this, and I didn't mention it briefly, is triggers. And we've got so much stuff on triggers on the podcast. I'm going to send some recommendations for you to go deeper with that. But again, it's getting curious. Where am I being triggered? What is triggering me in my relationships, in my life, in my work? And what is the story that I'm making this mean about me? When someone does this, what do I make it mean about me? Because again, this is all about today's journey back to self. That's what it is. It's coming back to yourself. It's like, what is this revealing to me? And rather than shaming or wronging or getting swept up in like the ego spiral of it, of this means I'm not good enough, this means I'm not cut out for this means it's not going to happen for me. What am I making it mean? And how can I become the experiencer of that? How can I become the observer of that? And start to look at it from a new lens, a new perspective of this actually doesn't mean anything unless I make it mean something. This is my perception of this. This is what I have been believing about this, and I actually get to choose if I continue believing that. Does it serve me to continue believing this? The other interesting thing with this is that on some level, part of you actually believes that it does. Otherwise, it wouldn't be believing it. It wouldn't be doing these patterns, or a big one is like self-sabotage. Like self-sabotage is really just self-protection. In everything, holding on to anything that we're holding on to, there actually is a benefit and a consequence. Letting it go, there's a benefit, there's a consequence, there's both in everything. Whether we perceive it to be a good thing or a bad thing, there's always a benefit and a consequence. That's the world that we live in. So starting to get curious, if I'm holding on to this belief, how is it serving me, or how has it served me? And then how is it impacting my life? By not doing this work, how is that serving me? How is it impacting me? By doing this work, again, how is it serving? How is it impacting? And we start to see that some of these beliefs are actually causing more pain than they are pleasure or protection. When we really go into it, we see how we're doing something in order to protect ourselves, but it's actually causing more of that pain, more of those woundings. And then in that, we're able to start to shift it. And we can start to be more of a conscious, intentional creator of our reality and of our experience. And all of this is going to allow you to experience that deeper intimacy with yourself. Even just sitting with yourself for maybe even 20 minutes today and going through some of these prompts and these invitations, you're going to find that you're journeying back to self more and more and more. You're getting to know different aspects and elements of yourself. And even if it's things that you're like, I know this. I know I have this belief. I've been doing this work. I've been on this journey, and these things might not be new to you, but you never know just how it might be showing up in a very subtle way. So the more that we sit with this, and we might hear the same thing again, but we're like, oh, this came up for me. Even though this, what I'm saying might not be new to you, it's like, oh, this memory came up. Oh, this thing, the way that I said it might just kind of trigger or inspire something new for you. And what's really incredible for me is I experience this all the time, um, is how much I can still be contorting or trying to be the good girl. And my podcast is The Good Girl Unleashed. It's really that journey of unleashing and coming out of that box. But I can still find threads and layers and aspects that are so subtle, they're so sneaky, they're so good at hiding. And I'm like, wow, like I can see how I'm still trying to be the good girl. I can still see how I'm trying to fit in and be loved and be accepted and still holding back. So it's that continuous journey of where else can I maybe start to see where I'm contorting or where I'm not feeling safe, and how can I start to support myself to feel more safe, to be authentic, to express the boundary, to express the need, to meet those needs and boundaries for myself. And really just meeting all of this with curiosity. What is here for me? What is being revealed to me? When I get triggered, what is being revealed to me? And what the other piece that I was going to speak to as well, and I'll just take a moment here for that before we go into the embodiment journey, is how to navigate triggers and conflict effectively, allowing you to remain open and connected in your relationships. So for me, this has been a massive journey. And it actually really connects to the piece that I mentioned around the pain of unmet needs. So if we have this really thick membrane, this thick energy of the pain of all these unmet needs that we're likely holding on to for years and decades and maybe a lifetime, that actually will create this kind of sensitivity. Like we're so much more susceptible and vulnerable to getting triggered by our external environment and getting swept up in it and the stories of it, because there's so many layers of trauma and wounding that has not been resolved, and the trigger is actually an opportunity to heal and integrate that. That's the gold here. Your triggers are like a gold mine. There is so much for you to learn through your triggers, and it's really a catalyst for healing if we're open to that. But so often it's so intense and uncomfortable, we can get kind of caught up in this blame game of you made me feel this way. But no one can actually make you feel anything. It's the way that you perceived what they were doing, because often that wasn't even their intention. But we've like assumed this is what they're doing, this is what they mean by this is what it means about me. And I'm going to be sending you some resources of how to actually navigate triggers that is going to be really supportive for you so that you can remain open when you're triggered. So often when we get triggered, we'll shut down, we'll fight, we'll flee, we'll freeze, we'll fawn, and we'll suppress, we'll avoid. We don't want to feel because it's so uncomfortable. And often when we're triggered, it's going to lead to, there's obviously like there's like a boundary here that I need to set, there's a conversation that I need to have, there's like this confrontation in that experience that's really uncomfortable. So again, if we can expand our capacity to feel more sensation in the body through the embodiment work, that's going to allow you to feel the trigger and not be so overwhelmed by it. And so you're like, oh, I'm triggered here. It's like, oh, that's interesting. What's here for me? Rather than like, we kind of go into this overwhelming experience where we completely lose ourselves in that situation. And we either fight and lash out and yell and scream, or like kind of retaliate, or we like flee the scene and we just avoid the whole situation, or we freeze and we're just like in this state of I don't even know what to do right now, or maybe we fawn and we kind of go into like folding and people pleasing and kind of just going along with whatever the other person wants so that we don't have to deal with the uncomfortable. But if we can start to expand our capacity to feel more sensation, you're going to find that in that situation, you can take a pause, you can breathe, and choose how you respond, which means that you don't have to shut yourself off from your life force energy, from your heart energy, from life itself. You don't need to go into this kind of shell, this hardening that actually disconnects you, because you're actually going to have that safety anchored into your system. And I'll be going into more ways that we can actually work together on a deeper level to support anchoring in that depth of safety in the body, because that's really what's essential. If we want to have that deep connection and intimacy, we need to have safety anchored in on a very, very, very deep level so that you can access that. And from that place, we can start to expand more and more and more, to feel more, to have that aliveness, to have that connection. All right, so that completes the teaching transmission element of today's session. I'm actually going to be taking a moment just to stop the recording here and then restart so that we can go into the embodiment journey. So for anyone watching the replay, if you want to actually come into the embodiment experience, just make sure you're registered so that I can send that to you via email. And then everyone, you're going to have access to these for about a week after the masterclass ends, to catch up on the replays, the embodiment journeys. So just making sure that you prioritize that. So if you know you can't make any of the live calls, just schedule it in your calendar for a time that you can make it so that you can really receive this. Because this is really, like I said, it's going to set you up for this new year. What energy do we want to enter the new year with? All right.